Well, hello, everyone. I am Tommy Lahren, along with Rich Edson, Taylor Riggs, and Jason Chaffetz. Welcome to the big weekend show. The big story tonight is a Fox News alert. President Trump is reportedly holding off on a major escalation against Iran. Axios reports that the top U.S. military commander in the Middle East, Admiral Brad Cooper, advised stopping the bombing campaign in the Strait of Hormuz, arguing it has reached the limit of its effectiveness. Meanwhile, multiple reports indicate that Trump's advisors raised concerns over U.S. air defense munitions and Patriot interceptors being diminished in the Middle East. The administration is downplaying those reports.
It shouldn't surprise you the New York Times is off base. As the president said, we are locked and loaded. Even more assets are going into theater. But he's giving talk some space. He's giving it a little bit of room. We've had both Oman and Iran and a number of our other negotiators engaged at every level, from the most senior levels all the way down to the technical level over the past few weeks, and particularly in the past few days.
Meanwhile, Iran-backed Houthi rebels launched a massive strike on Saudi oil facilities with dozens of ballistic missiles and drones. This escalation opens a new front in the conflict ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's meeting with President Trump this Tuesday.
This regime is either toppled or it's sufficiently weakened that it knows it has to end its nuclear program and has to change its course. That's really what President Trump is trying to achieve. It's a good thing to have the opportunity to sit with our good friend President Trump and to hear what he has in mind, because I think in many ways it's his decision.
At the same time, the commander-in-chief has signed a massive civilian nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia, giving American companies priority to build reactors in the country. Jason, I want to start there. I think that that's a new twist and turn to all of this. So I want to get your initial reaction to this news and what that entails, and if you think that that's a good idea.
I trust the president in this. There's some three-dimensional chess going on here, because when you really start in the earlier part of the story, if you start looking at the Houthis, which is a subset or a faction within Yemen, Yemen and Saudi Arabia have been going at it for like 2 decades. I mean, when I was in Congress, I went and visited some of the targeting sites and how they would do this. That has ties into Iran. So you can't look at any one of these elements in its own isolation, because the tentacles of terrorism that the Iranians have built over the course of time all tie into this. Now, I think the knee-jerk reaction is say, oh, let's not let anybody have nuclear development. But in a controlled setting, in a controlled way, where U.S. companies are helping to lead the charge and we have a say in it, for energy production, that seems to make a lot of sense, because we need to have that relationship with the Saudis. They are a good partner in this. It's been nefarious in the background, over the course of time. But I think the strength in the relationship between the Crown Prince and the President of the United States right now bodes well for us.
Yeah. Well, I love your perspective on that. When I heard it, I was a little taken aback. Rich, when we started this conflict, we're, a few months in now, it was about Iran not having a nuclear weapon. And then quickly the Strait of Hormuz became a part of this narrative. And then there was some Israel-Lebanon discussions there. And then now the Saudi Arabia, this potential endeavor or this deal, which isn't really potential anymore. It's right at our doorstep. It's been evolving a lot. Does this mean that we're in for more than we bargained for? Or, as Jason said, has this always been a part of it?
And as Jason noted, there are so many different parties in this region. They are all interconnected. They all play off each other. And also, not to mention, remember, on the civilian nuclear deal, too, and trying to draw closer to Saudi Arabia, there's the question of, okay, will China fill a vacuum if the United States leaves the region? So that is on the horizon as well, and a question for U.S. policymakers. But yes, you have all of these different interconnected groups, the Houthis in Yemen, who are backed by the Iranian regime, now have entered the fray in the back and forth. And at first, the president had a long list of issues that the United States wanted to tackle in this conflict. It's a very old list. It's get rid of the regime. It's stop the ballistic missile program. It's stop the regional proxies, including supporting the Houthis all across the region. Until this conflict, the Iranians had not shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And so that got added to the list. And so now the focus really is back to nuclear, which has always really been the primary driver above all those other issues, and now reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And it seems to be quite cyclical at this moment.
a lot of things involved. So it feels like this is ever-changing, as these things are in the Middle East. Try to figure it out. I don't think it's going to work. Taylor, we're going to get into the economics of all of this shortly, but I want to go to kind of where we started in this segment, talking about some of the reports that have been dismissed or downplayed by the administration about, perhaps we have limited our ability to respond at the moment. We need to rearm. We need to do something about our munitions supply. And of course, the administration is saying that that's not the case. But what do you make of that? Do you think that the American people are going to be concerned?
No, I think it means that whenever we talk about sort of this massive attack that maybe will or will not come or will come later, I think we are trying to give diplomacy 10 more chances. I continually hear from Larry Kudlow, who is on the program frequently, this is a president that honestly hates dropping bombs. He wants peace through strength, and he's trying to give this a chance for as long as possible. He wants to be able to go to the American people and say, we tried everything we could not to drop bombs on them, but they're crazy and they're terrorists, and so this is all that we had left. When we think about the Middle East and that nuclear deal in Saudi Arabia, I am also not totally opposed to it because I think it helps put the region on notice. I think Iran has been shooting at its neighbors, and who would have thought 10, 20 years ago Iran would be shooting drone attacks at Saudi, Qatar, Dubai, you name it. And so I think this helps in that region. You're either with Iran and China or you're with the U.S. And this starts to pull all of those Gulf nations towards the U.S. to further isolate Iran. Iran now pretty much only has China and Russia, maybe Cuba, but we're also trying to pull Cuba and Venezuela our way. And so I think when we think about, we don't want nuclear proliferation in the Middle East, but we also want to start to really isolate Iran. And I think this also puts Iran on notice. Your neighbors are not your friends. They are coming towards the West. Why? Because when you have peace, you have massive prosperity. And I think Saudi Arabia and Dubai and some of those other countries, they want prosperity. And you get that by going through peace. So I think you also mentioned Bibi's meeting on Tuesday. China's Xi Jinping is going to be coming here in September. And so I think this also trying to figure out about with our relationships with China right now, what does this mean for that meeting in September? I know it'll be something we'll talk about.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. All right, we're going to turn to this as we discuss this further, because latest data shows American oil refineries are running at near full capacity, hitting over 96%. The war with Iran is putting America's energy dominance to the test for sure, but it's currently holding as the U.S. ship exports more gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Americans are paying for it, though, because the national average of gas prices is now topping $4 a gallon. Jason, we didn't get a chance to talk to you about the good old gas prices yesterday, so I want you to weigh in. We had a discussion at this table about not downplaying the concerns of everyday Americans who paying more for gas is a make or break thing for them, in their monthly budget. They can't afford a whole lot extra. And right now they're trying to be patient, but they're getting a little concerned that these gas prices are going to be elevated for quite some time. What's your take?
Well, President Trump has shown that he can drive down the price of gas to about $2 a gallon. It was below $2 a gallon in Utah at one point. Now, Iran has set that back. I don't think that was the president's goal to enter into this conflict, but I think he saw the necessity to protect the United States of America. I'm okay paying a little bit more for gasoline, understanding that we have a bigger, broader security mission at play. I think the message from the administration needs to be one of, yes, energy independence, but that truly has got to mean energy independence. Thank goodness what the Energy Secretary, President Trump, and certainly Lee Zeldin at the EPA have done. Otherwise, gas would be like $6, $7 a gallon, and it'd probably be $9 or $10 in California. So not everywhere in the country is the same. Gavin Newsom is purposely driving up the cost of gasoline in California. So it's got to get better. I think it'll hurt Republicans in the midterms. But the goal is a safe, secure United States of America that is energy independent and self-sufficient. And I still think we're on that trajectory. We have to fill up the strategic petroleum reserves, by the way. It still bothers me that Biden drained those. That was terribly irresponsible. Should we have a natural disaster or something more horrific than that?
Yeah, we discussed that yesterday. I'm sure we're going to discuss it more. I'm going to go to the end of the table and talk to Taylor about that. Yeah, I want you to piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
We talked about this yesterday, but in layman's terms to the everyday American, that are watching this, and now they're seeing some Saudi deals potentially, but they're also saying, okay, well, what about the Strait of Hormuz? Now we got the Houthis. We're worried about a second front to this war. Are we going to go over $5 a gallon?
Yes.
What are the holidays going to look like for us? You know, what do you tell them to ease their fears, or I guess maybe not?
Yeah, so we are the world's exporter of crude. That is the good news. But the bad news is it is priced globally. So pretty much traders who are setting the price of oil are looking at supply and they're looking at demand. And right now there's a lot more demand than there is supply. So even though we are exporting and producing a lot more, they're looking at global supply, not U.S. supply. So when people come to me and they say, but we are producing a lot of oil, so why are our prices going up? It's just priced on a global market. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So that's why prices are moving. I think the point to California, $1 extra per gallon goes to taxes alone.
Yeah.
There are regulation taxes, state and local taxes, green energy taxes. So that's why they're getting it's up to $4, $5, $6 when the rest of the nation is on average at $4. Add $1 in California because they like to tax you. They also don't refine in California because of the anti-business climate. They pushed refineries out of the state. So they import their crude from, wait for it, Iraq and the Bahamas, because they don't want to import or refine their own. And so they're importing dirty oil from Iraq to do so. I think the hard part as well, and then I'll wrap this up, not get too nitty gritty. There is the light sweet crude, and then there's the heavy sour. And refineries are meant to process either one. And so even though we produce light sweet, a lot of the refineries are meant to refine heavy sour imports from the Middle East or from Canada. So it's just more complicated than we're energy independent, and therefore we can set our own prices.
Right. Rich, how does this play in? I know you're going to Michigan soon.
Sure am.
I don't know if they're necessarily focused on the conflict in Iran or gas prices. So they have some other things on their agenda item. But I think that the people in Michigan are going to be paying attention to this. How is it going to change primaries, change midterms?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just covering politics over the past 20 years, basically.
Yeah.
But the really ongoing since the 2024 election, it's been the cost of living. The cost of living has impacted that election. It's a large part of why President Trump got another go at the White House. And now he's in charge, and prices have continued to go up, because we're not only talking about filling up your car, we're talking about filling up your semi-truck with diesel that takes all the products that you buy from the shelf, which makes it more expensive to transport them, which makes it more expensive for all of us to buy that stuff. So it's showing up in inflation across the economy. And, you know, first off, it's a difficult election environment that you have Republicans in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. That's a tough environment for any midterm election. You're fully in control. And you know, sure, there are plenty of voters out there who will say, this attack was for the greater good. In the end, I'm okay paying a couple of dollars more a gallon maybe for the short term. But if they feel like that's turning into the long term, or they're just looking at their grocery bill or looking at their fuel bill, that's not a good mix to be going into the midterms. Now, Democrats have their own problems, certainly.
Yeah.
But that foundation for Republicans is a challenge.
I think that's how this administration is going to be judged, and I think they can get back on track. Jet fuel is also going up, too. If you've been booking airline tickets lately, you know that they've been passing that right on along.
Planes don't fly on magic, so.
Yeah. Well, the Democrats had hoped for a while that they could power them in some weird way, but alas.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.